Okay, so without any further ado, let's get this done. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna disable this guy here so I don't lose it. Let's see. I'm gonna turn this off. Okay, so it's off now, and I'm gonna show you guys the list of things I have going on. So basically we will do 3 materials: the debris material, the explosion material, and also the glow material, which I swear I thought it would be here, but for some reason it's not. Oh, that's right, because I'm actually not using the glow, I'm just using the light, which is something maybe we can add at the end, even though it's not on the actual video I was doing. Another thing you could also do that I didn't do is to add sparks, because usually it looks kind of nice, or refraction, you know, like shockwave kind of looking. But I thought that for the purposes of this tutorial, I think this looks kind of neat already as it is. Sometimes less is more, you know, because sometimes too many things just make too much clutter and the effect starts to lose its readability, and no one wants that. So let's start by, this is the particle system. I can show it to you. So we're gonna be recreating this guy here, or at least a part of it. So yeah, let's make a duplicate. No, I'm sorry, let's make a new one, and I'm gonna make a new particle system. I apologize, my system is a bit slow because I'm recording as I go. So I'll call this explosion tutorial. So this is actually going to be the explosion we're going to be making, and I'm going to follow what I did for the other one. So I'm going to open this guy, and I'm sorry also because I have 2 screens and I have to keep dragging this guy over. Alright, so this is Cascade. It's Unreal 4 particle editor, as you probably know. If you don't, then I strongly advise you to take a look at some of the tutorials and documentation from Unreal Engine 4, which is quite nice, and it explains a lot of things, and definitely the basics of how to use Unreal Engine 4, which you will probably need to achieve this tutorial. So let's take a look at what I did. So I'm going to start with the fireball element, because it's the main element in our effect. Is the one that has the biggest, well, it's the biggest visual element. It's the one that has the most shape, and so it's definitely the most important one to start with, so we can get an idea of volume. That's another important thing. I like to place my effects in the world, so I can actually get a good idea of sense of scale and speed, because in my opinion those are the most important things for an effect. Then there's also secondary things like color, you know, but I think timing and scale are probably some of the most important ones to make a successful explosion. And also the impression of force and weight, that's definitely very important. It's telling me that's auto saving and it's just postponed. That's fine. Alright, so I'm gonna actually, you know what, I'm not gonna put it in the world yet, because I'm just gonna put a few things here before I actually place it in the world. Let's just see what I did here. So this tutorial doesn't take forever, and I'll still explain as I go, so it should be fine. So we're going to go to the required module, and let's see what I did here. Of course, I'm going to start by, since it's an explosion, it's not a recurring effect. It's not like a fire that never extinguishes, or smoke. or other, you know, environmental effects. An explosion is just a burst. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change the loops to 1. So I kind of like that. I like not to see the explosion over and over and over. I like to actually control when I see it, and the way you can do it is by pressing spacebar while you have Cascade open. You can actually, you know, you press spacebar and actually see it in the world, which is pretty cool. And that's the way I've been working since a long time, and I think it's a really good way to do it, because you don't need to wait until the effect is over to see it again. You just, like, when you see what you want to see, you just press spacebar again and you just restart the effect. And I think that's really important. Okay, so I'll put emitters loops to 1. I'm going to change interpolation already. I'm going to change it because we're going to use a flipbook with this guy. In case you don't know what a flipbook is, some people call it CBV, some people call it animated textures. I call it flipbook. I think it's a term from Unreal. Or some people call it sprite sheets from the old days, from Super Nintendo and this kind of stuff. I will just refer to it as a flipbook. Basically, it's just a succession of images. You know, in this case, it's going to be 6 images horizontal by 6 images vertical, and then Cascade is gonna make it loop from the frame number 1 to frame number 36. So yeah, change linear blend so it linear interpolates between the images, which is kind of nice. There's other ones we're going to explore. Let's see, anything here? No. Okay, I think that's it for this guy. I'm going to change the spawn settings. I'm going to change my spawn. I want to spawn 10 particles. And for some reason it's because because I have flipbook. You know what? Let's just change this guy back to none and set it back to 1 and 1, so we can actually see it here. Otherwise, it might be a bit confusing, because I know what I'm doing, because I actually have the effect I worked on the side, but for you guys it might be a bit tricky since you cannot see what's going on. Right. So actually, you know what? I actually got the wrong one. So this guy is actually 0, because this is the constant rate, which we don't need for this one. Actually, we don't need it for any single one in this effect, because our whole effect is just a burst. If you wanted like a lingering element, then you would leave rate on. So I want my burst list, and I want to spawn 10 particles. So you see there's a little burst, 10 particles in the end, and then I press spacebar again and it just plays again. For some reason, it's actually playing it again, even though I have emitter loops to 1. That shouldn't be. Huh. Okay, doesn't really matter. So I've got 10, and let's go to the lifetime, how long our particles are going to live, and I got 6 seconds by 4. Initial size, I went with something like 90 by 90 by 90 by 46, and that's it for this guy. Initial velocity, which comes also with Cascade by default. I'm gonna put 60, and I'm gonna put 60 negative, so it goes in all directions. You can also use start velocity radial, but I'm just kind of used to go all the way and do it the hard way, because sometimes I like to randomize this kind of stuff. So personal preferences. You can go ahead and just use this guy. It's all the same. Seriously, the most important thing is just making something that looks good. Nobody really cares the way you do it, unless it's too expensive, because you're not familiar with real-time engine or with games in general. It's just starting up and you were watching this tutorial as you were a complete beginner. when I mean expensive, it means that it takes too much either GPU or CPU to render something, so it's computationally expensive for the console or the computer, and it's expensive in a way that it's not gonna render in real time. Just froze. That's not good. It's just not gonna. Oh, it's sorry. It's doing the autosave. So it's gonna take more time for the CPU and GPU to render. So it might break the frame rate. You know, it might make things slower, or maybe it won't render at all if it's too expensive, because the computer has to do all these calculations in real time. If you think about it, it's quite impressive. So we got our start velocity. I'm gonna go to color of life, and I believe I got 2 elements, 5 members, yeah, pretty much. And I'm gonna go ahead. This one I actually need to. 1 second. I need to paste my X, and I think it was 150. So I really apologize. I'm doing something on the other screen, so it actually, in a way, it's actually better. So I don't take like too long to show some stuff. And I'm gonna paste it here. So this is the colors I have for my explosion. The only difference is that I had to change the value from 150, which is what I had, to 1, because my X becomes this, which is pretty useless, and I couldn't copy this over. It would be just pure whites blowing up like crazy. All right, so we got our color, and I'm gonna copy the color for the time of death. I'm sorry, actually it's not the time of death, it's actually 0.1 in the lifetime of the explosion. I'm actually going to paste this guy, click enter. So our explosion is going to start with this super intense color. Whoa, what happened? Okay, didn't save, so I'm gonna do it again. For some reason didn't save. Press enter. Okay, I'm just gonna quit and come back, see if, okay, that's good. And I'm just gonna put 150 back in mind so I don't forget it. So start, it's 150 intensity, it's gonna be really bright, really intense, and then in 0.1 seconds I'm gonna go to this color I have here. And alpha, I don't think I did anything particular fancy with it. I think I just left it to the defaults. They're very important. Let's start adding some nodes. I'm gonna add WVs, and I think I had some custom stuff here. Okay, this is all zeros, and then this guy is gonna be like this, so it goes really fast over the flip block. And I think I need another one, 3 members, 3 elements, and I need this guy to be 1, I believe. Yep, and 36. Okay, so it's gonna go through the flip book really quickly and then slow down at the end. I'm gonna put the size scale, and it's gonna be 15 by 15 by 15. All axes, that's correct. Size by live. Three elements. It's gonna be 1 on 1. And then mid lifetime, it's actually gonna be still 1. And at the end of the lifetime, I believe it's gonna be 2. Yes, it's going to be double in size from the beginning. Constant acceleration. Let's see, got 20 here. So actually it's going up. Interesting. Yeah, because I guess I wanted to make like some smoke go up. Initial rotation. We're gonna add this module. And we're gonna set it to 1. I got also something called pivot offset. Most of the time you don't need this. I need this because of the way I constructed this. Actually, I need to remember where is the pivot offset. It's in the location, pivot offset. And my pivot offset was -0.1. Yeah, okay, good. Initial rotation rates. This makes it spin. So, then again, you know, you don't need to follow all these values. Just do something that, you know, kind of works for you. In this case was these values. Maybe in your scenes it'd be completely different. It's 10. And distribution context. Vector constant. Oh. Okay. Okay, that's correct. Alright, so we got our first particle emitter from the explosion, which we will name Fireball. And it doesn't look like much, but it's pretty much what I have on the other side, and it's what it's gonna look good. So we're gonna just, so right now what I'm gonna do, actually gonna grab this guy, place it in the world, just move it up. It really doesn't help that I'm recording. My computer is so slow. It's really difficult to see what's going on. Oh wow. It went really far away. Alright. I honestly I can't remember if there's a way to snap stuff in Unreal Engine, because this is really annoying. I haven't used it in a while. Yeah, this is kind of painful. CryEngine, I remember I use it all the time. It's really easy. This guy, I don't remember if there's a good way of doing it. I remember something about insert, and then it kind of does a raycast on the z-axis. I don't know. Okay, so alright, so we got this guy. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna, let's do just one of each, like one material, one particle effect, and then I'll go through I'll run you through the other ones, so we don't need to actually construct it. Otherwise, this might be a very long tutorial. And you know, you can just pause it and just see the values, and so it should be fine. Okay. So let's make a material, and this is going to be explosion material tutorial. I'm going to open it here, drag it to this side. So this is the material editor from Unreal, pretty nice. It's a bit slow, but nice. I'm gonna minimize this, And what did I do here? Let's take a look. So first thing, I'm gonna drag my flipbook explosion, my normal map from this flipbook. There's a bunch of other textures I did for a different explosion I had done before for this tutorial, but I ended up not using them for here. So let's grab these two and let's make a super simple material. Some people like to make complex materials. I like to make complex materials sometimes, but something like this, you know, it's okay to go really simple and really fast to see what's going on. And also because if the shader is cheap, you can use more particles. Of course, the more particles you have, the more expensive the effect is going to be, you know. So a less expensive shader, you can use more particles. More expensive shader, you can do maybe more fancy things with it, but you can use less particles. So I think it's on my autosave. So in here, I'm just right click, and I'm going to add a particle color. I'm going to add 2 multiplies. And let me just make this a bit bigger. And I think that's good. I'm going to add a color into this guy. And it's going to multiply by the color from the particle editor. The color we specified 150 is going to be output from here. And I have this guy multiplying by 0.2, so it's not as intense. And this goes into base color. And down here, I'm going to add a depth fade, which you can find in Unreal documentation what it does. And I'm going to put it in opacity. Just let me see what the value I used. I used 15. Just let me just check 1 second. Okay. I hope you can actually hear the audio well. Hopefully. I'm recording really close, but it's kind of late at night and I don't want to make too much noise for the neighbors. So normal map goes into normal map, and we're going to change the material settings. Another thing is that you should always want to see them in a plane, because particles are most of the time are a flat plane, so that's how you should look at them. Translucent. I put translucent. I'm gonna leave it lit, and I'm gonna change this to directional. No, these are good. This particle sprites. You don't need to check this on, but you know, because it actually turns itself on, so you don't actually need to turn it on. That's good. All right, very good. Oh, sorry, almost forgot. And this one goes into emissive, so we should start seeing it very intense on the top and then really dim out. Oh Jesus. There we go. Actually, we can't, because the output from here, I believe it's 1 or 0. You cannot actually see it from here. But if I add a constant here, constant is just a value, and I put the 150. Oh, there we go. And it looks a bit funny right now because it's applying it to the whole flipbook, but you know, in our case, it's just gonna apply the 150 to like the first frames, and then it's gonna go to 1, I believe. I think it was. Yeah, and then it's gonna be this color, more orangey, because that's the color I picked, because it's a color of the environment. So I'm going to delete this guy. I'm going to save this guy. So it's saving the material. the more complex the shader, the longer it's going to take. It's actually a very simple shader, but it's still taking very long. I think it's because my computer is really working out because I'm actually recording the video at the same time. Alright, so and what you do is we can minimize this guy. Let's call back our explosion tutorial. I go to required. I'm gonna go to material and I'm gonna highlight the new material we just did, and boof, here we go. And here is where I had set this up to linear blend, and I'm gonna put 6 by 6, and now you can see our glorious explosion happening. So if I press space, you can see it. It's looking really brilliant and vivid. It's looking pretty nice. Even though it's just one element, it's already showing its strength at the start. Now it dissipates and then the rest takes longer. That is very simple, but you know, kind of does its thing. So let's make the second material. I can also show how to do this one because it's pretty simple. So debris, material, tutorial. Once again, drag the texture in, maximize this guy, and alright, so I think this one is even simpler than the other one. So another particle color. It's super simple, but this is an introduction to how make explosions. So it's ought to be simple and still look fairly nice. So put this to opacity, multiply this guy, multiply the color. I think I'm tinting it, otherwise you don't need it. You know, I could just put a constant or just put a 1 here, or even plug in directly. It doesn't really matter, especially not for this very tiny debris. You're gonna be seeing it like this, but you know, the color, it's actually I'm not being completely honest. I think the color is actually it's gonna help solve this a lot more. I put it to specular to 0 because I didn't want my rocks to be specky, and also I didn't want it to because it was causing some troubles on the corners of my image. And let me see, default settings, translucent of course. You can also go mask with this, but I just went with translucent. Mask should be a bit more cheap, but maybe I would need to fix the edges a little bit. And for something like this simple, honestly, it's not really gonna make a big difference. I think everything else is correct. So let's save this guy. See, this one was a lot faster than the other guy because, well, it's simpler and the textures are tinier. So I guess it takes less time to compile, or maybe my computer is not doing anything at the moment and it was just faster because of it. What was that? I thought I had saved. That was a bit strange. Oh, okay. May I close this now? Oh, thank you. So let's go back to our explosion tutorial and let's quickly add the debris. Another thing I like to do sometimes, especially in a system like Unreal where you have, you know, a list of all the emitters, so they're cascading, which, you know, makes sense for the name. Is to actually duplicate this a bunch of times, and you know, like I would have a fireball, I would have, you know, the glow, and then I would duplicate this another time. Usually I do this even at the very beginning. I'll have my sparks, you know, and then I just turn them off. So when I'm looking at the overall picture, I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh yeah, I still need to add a glow. Oh yeah, I still need to add a sparks. And you know, like as I'm going, and the effect is evolving and growing, because, you know, I consider effects to be like characters. They need to have some sort of personality, you know, and you know, the effect needs to be unique, original, has to have its own identity, and I just treat it like a character, and you'll do fine. And as you grow, and as the effect grows, and it grows in you, you can definitely see like, oh, you know what, I actually don't need a glow. So I'm actually, you know what, I had this here so I don't forget, but I actually don't need it. So I'm either collapsing it or I'm just gonna kill it. And you know what, sparks, you know, the effect looks good without the sparks. And honestly, I don't think it needs sparks. I think it's looking pretty good without sparks, and unless it's like something really mandatory, I would say for performance sake and for its visual identity, and not to make the effect more noisy, you know, to keep it very clear to the player of what it is and still looking awesome, I would say no sparks, you know. But it's good at the beginning to have it, and so you can have an idea of what elements you still need, so you remember, you know, oh, I need a refraction, I need a shockwave, you know, this kind of stuff. But you know, right now we're good with this. I'm gonna add a new one, and I'm gonna call it debris. And we're just gonna do one. I'll just give you a rundown of the other ones. So actually, you know what? This guy is gonna be a GPU particle. GPU particles are really cheap and they have really nice collisions. And since I'm gonna spawn a ton of debris, that's the reason why I wanna GPU particles. Even though it's very limited in terms of the modules that it actually works with. By the way, if you don't know what a module is, this is a module. Each one of these things and everything in this list is a module. It's kind of limited because a lot of the modules that work with CPU sprites or CPU particles don't work with GPU, but for the rocks, it will work, because what we need to do is kind of simple. And another thing that really bothered me about Cascade, and I will tell you this now so you don't get the same pains that I have in the future, is that sometimes I'm working in one effect and I have a huge list, and I accidentally click, or I'm checking other values and accidentally click, and I go here and I go there, and then I think I'm changing values from this guy. I'm actually changing from this guy, which is like super annoying, because then you need Control Z, and you know, you definitely don't want to undo, especially because you didn't even know what you were undoing. It's unless you're like actually watching the screen you're undoing, you actually don't see what's changing. So there's a couple of ways of fixing this. You can either solo the element you're working on, which is what I'm doing, so the other ones become impossible to play with, or you can just stack it, you know, which is still dangerous because you're actually still on the other one. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. With I actually like to solo elements a lot, but sometimes you need to see the whole picture, and that's that's one of the problems with Cascade I have, and a few people have, and maybe they will fix it, maybe they will not. As far as I know, they're not changing cascade that much anymore because of the new particle system that they're working on. But yeah, just to keep that in mind. All right, so we can actually select our material, and we can actually add it here. All right, and we go down. Actually, it's kind of cool that I selected this one, because this one we get to play a bit with this, and so this means the particles will be spit out 0.1 second after the beginning of the effect. So this one starts at 0, this one starts at 0.1, and that means it will have a little bit of delay compared to the other one, or to the beginning of the particle system, which is awesome. You know, like you do some lingering smoke and you don't want it to spawn at the beginning, you just want it to kind of fade in like in the middle of the effect or something, and this is the way you can control that. Interpolation I believe it's none, because it's just one sprite, and I think that's it for this guy. We go to spawn again. There's a burst effect, so we don't need rate. And so how many particles I'm spawning? 150. It's actually not too much for GPU particles, but then again, I have a bunch of more emitters, so a bunch of more rock debris. So nothing new here, just changing the lifetime, change the scale, which I think actually might have something a bit different here. Oh yeah, here I have a vector uniform curve. So I get some more randomization on the size of my little debris. There's definitely a way that you don't need to input all the 3 vectors. I just don't remember, and I'm kind of lazy to figure it out right now. Or maybe there isn't. I don't know. Actually, I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Just a little. Okay, cool. Initial velocity. It's gonna go pretty fast. So it's gonna be jumping around like crazy. I did add them at the debris. So are they showing up? They're not showing up. I think I might need. I think there's something else that's gonna. Well, let's keep adding these. I think it's because I actually worked on scale and other things before I actually changed the initial size. So let's keep going with this. Color of life. I actually didn't do anything interesting, so I'm just going to copy the value like I did before. So it gets like orangey color for my rocks to mimic the orangey color from the actual sandstone. So let's size scale. And it's 30 by 30 by 30. Yeah, that was the problem. See, now it's working. because the scale was just, just way too tiny. I'm gonna add initial rotation, so my rock's gonna spin. Or actually, initial rotation, I'm sorry. So my actual rocks start in all random rotations. And now I'm gonna add a rotation rate. Just gonna make them spin. They're gonna spin. By the way, this doesn't really matter. I just put min and max the opposite way of it should be. Doesn't change anything. Okay, cool. Constant acceleration, which is pretty much the gravity. It's pretty heavy. 300, I believe it's meters or centimeters per second. The default should be 9.8 minus 9.8, which is real world gravity, but as I said, just do something that looks good. Nobody really cares the way you do it, because it's like in CG, everything is cheating. You just need to cheat the eye and make it believe in things, and it doesn't really matter if the values you use are not physically accurate or not, unless it causes other problems in by not working with the scale of the game, but that's a completely different discussion right there. Collision. So this is like super cheap collisions, and you can see it bouncing against the my other building. It's pretty awesome, and it's so cheap. So cheap you can't believe it. Gonna add a little bit of friction. And everything else is okay, I think. So they're gonna start like dragging. See, they're kind of like stuck there. It's pretty cool. And I have strangely enough, I have another constant acceleration. So actually I can turn this guy off, or I can just change it. It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna change this guy because I think it's a lot of tweaking that I did before, and I just copying values from one to another, and that's how I end with some modules that stack on top of each other. It doesn't really matter because this one will override the other one before, I believe. So there we go. We have our blast of debris. They have random sizes, random rotations, and they spin. These ones are kind of heavy, that's why they don't spinning much. If we play everything, we can start seeing it. Boom, boom. I also like to make this sound effects with my mouth as I'm working. It's very nerdy or very crazy looking, and everyone wants a crazy effects artist, because if you look crazy enough, that that means you're probably or hopefully you're a good effects artist. At least you got the crazy part right. Let's be honest, you need to be a bit of a pyromaniac, at least in the computer graphics world, to want a job like this, make everything blow up all the time. So here's one thing that was annoying me. I forgot to set my middle loops. Okay, good. To see, it's feeling powerful and heavy, and the scale is pretty good. It's like some missile hit this little construction here. Looking pretty neat. So there's a lot of stuff we could fix, like the blending between frames and make a better flipbook, but so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna close this guy, and I'm going to actually disable our friend here. I'm gonna disable it, come back to our older friend. And this one, as you can see, has a lot more elements. And that's because it actually has a lot more elements. Let me just close the other guys. Alright. So let's take a look. As you see, I have a ton of emitters compared to the one we just did. We just worked on 2, and this tutorial is already almost 1 hour long. So I'm just going to give you a brief rundown of all the other ones, so you can have an idea. So I've added a light, and the light, as you can see, does this flash. That's why I don't need the glow in this case. I could add it, but honestly, it's not really important, you know. So I have a light spawning 8 particles. Can just make one light by, you know, adding the light here, and then you just change the size and the scale to something you feel confident with, you know. It's kind of difficult for you to see and have this open. How can I do this? I'm gonna put it here and try to put my cascade over here. Hopefully this will be good. Okay, I think that kind of works. Does it work? Cool. Alright, so I'm gonna minimize this guy. Then I have a little shockwave here, which is just faster moving dust being blasted to give this sense of, you know, pressure and power. Usually I would use refraction or a ground shockwave, you know, but for this tutorial I think this kind of works. So 17 particles, same thing here. Basically I'm just using the same texture from the flipbook, and I'm not even animating it. I think I'm actually animating it, but I'm just the last frames. I'm just using the last frames from the flipbook because I don't want the flames. Longer lifetime. What else? Speed. It's very fast compared to the other one. The other ones have drag, I believe, and this one doesn't. Has some gravity. Also, you know, the same deal. Initial rotation, pivot offset that we used. You most likely won't need to use it in your file, in the textures you create. Also creating it from a cylinder so I can actually spawn it in a different way. Size by life, pretty much the same deal. You know, keep it same size, and then just at the end keep growing it. So very, very simple stuff here. Lingering smoke, as you see, it just kind of pops into existence. It's actually fading in, but I don't think the video can. So you see, poof. So you actually, you know, and it sinks. Yeah, that's the important thing. This one kind of sinks. So this is more like, not so much smoke, I would say. This is more actually dust. Because dust is actually the one that goes down. While smoke goes up, the dust goes down. Kind of following the rocks, you know. So that's that guy. Fireball moving. I got a little bit of tiny fireballs moving a little bit with drag. So they kind of, you know, add a bit of randomization to the effect. Only difference is that they're smaller and they have drag. This guy, you don't even need this guy, because there was some testing I was doing. I didn't like it, so I just did. This is the one we did. Then I have smaller chunks, which is a duplicate of the debris, but I just added more, tinier. And then I have a version that are bigger ones, less quantity and heavier. These ones are heavier and big, and this one's tinier And then I have another layer of lingering smoke. And that's pretty much it. Let me see if I just didn't forget anything from my materials. Explosion material. Actually, I would like to see my... I'd like to see my... my content browser. There we go. Alright. Yep, I think that's it. So yeah, with this and stuff from the magazine, I hope you can achieve something similar or better. And at least I hope this was informative and give you an idea of how the thinking process of how to make an explosion effect in a real-time engine. Thank you.